Welcome into this week's edition of the Climate Friday newsletter. We're going to be talking white Christmas chances and also look at the final days of the year before we round the calendar and turn it over into the new year. If you're not already subscribed, WTOL.com/email. That's the place to go to get the Climate Friday straight to your inbox each and every week. We're going to be talking Christmas climatology, some extreme weather conditions from Christmases of past, and also a preview to this Christmas and Christmas Eve. Speaking of Christmas Eve, that is where we're going to start things off with December 24th and some extreme weather conditions that have occurred on the day before Christmas. The coldest Christmas Eve on record, that was set back in 1983 with negative 15-degree temperatures. That overnight low was downright frigid. Now, as we look towards the snowiest Christmas Eve, you may remember that one in recent memory, 2017, with 3.4 inches of snow the day before Christmas, and you woke up to about 3 inches still on the ground the following day on Christmas Day. Now, what about some extreme Christmas weather conditions? The warmest was 1982. Ironically, just the following year in 83 was the coldest on record, so it goes to show how volatile the weather in late December can be from one extreme to the other in just a year's time. That was the warmest Christmas on record with a balmy spring feeling 63-degree temperature reading, and the snowiest Christmas significantly snowier than the snowiest Christmas Eve with over 10 inches of accumulation. That occurred in 1909 on December 25th. Certainly a white Christmas and then some with almost a foot of snow on the ground. So extreme Christmas weather conditions on a number of different weather parameters, including the warmest and the coldest. And you'll notice those just situated a year apart from 1982 to 1983. And it goes to show that December can bring some ups and downs in the weather department depending on the specific jet stream pattern that may be occurring. The wettest in terms of precipitation, just shy of an inch of rainfall, and the snowiest, as I mentioned, 10.8 inches that occurred in 1909. Now, what about the last few years? Overwhelmingly, the recent Christmases have all been mild, at least for the most part. Last year, we got close to 60 degrees on Christmas Day. Of course, the exception to that overall warming trend is 2022 with a 15-degree high temperature, mind you. That was the warmest we got. Another day in the upper 50s in 2021. You may recall that balmy feeling Christmas. 2020 was the last time we had an inch of snow on Christmas Day, and it was also colder than freezing with 24-degree highs, and yet another day in the 50s in 2019. So overall, that does fit within the framework of climate change. Of course, December often does have ups and downs, as we saw with 82 and 83. Sometimes you go from a frigid winter chill to a balmy Christmas in just 1 year's time. What about snowfall? Well, actually receiving snow on Christmas Day is less common than you may think. No snow last year, needless to say, with those warm temperatures. In 2022, we did pick up a trace of snow accumulation, taking advantage of that bitterly cold air in place. And December 25th of 2020 was the last time we logged that inch of snow on Christmas. The year prior, well too warm for any accumulating snow. Now, white Christmases, at least getting snow to fall on the 25th, not so common. Looking back at the last 2 decades or 20 years of Christmas climatology data, only 2 of those 25ths have actually had an inch of snow falling on Christmas Day itself. Now, that's important to note because sometimes you do have snow that falls in the days prior and it's cold enough that it sticks around on the ground, but I know a lot of folks do prefer that fresh blanket of snow falling on the night before and the day of Christmas. Now, what about temperatures? Let's talk high temperatures because overall, Christmas Day is very commonly in the 30s. If we look back at climate data going all the way back to the late 1800s, temperatures in the 30s have been the most abundant with a total of 60 Christmas holidays in that range. 26 Christmases have occurred in the 40s, and that 50-degree plus range is a bit more elusive. Not quite as common to get those warmer days, but as I pointed out, of the last 5 Christmases, 3 of them have been in the 50s. So overall, even though that's uncommon territory, those 50-plus degree Christmases are statistically getting more commonplace. 20s, not quite as many as you may think, and there's been a couple Christmases with high temperatures failing to even reach the 10-degree mark. What about those overnight lows? Sometimes we do dip down below zero, and it's very infrequent, with only 6 Christmas days starting off the morning with sub-zero temperatures. There have been 16 Christmases in that 0 to 10-degree range, quite a few in the 10s and in the 20s as well. That is abundantly the most common in terms of Christmas morning temperatures. Oftentimes waking up to open those presents and look at the stockings to temperatures that are in the 20s. Occasionally the morning lows in the 30s, 40s, and only on 4 occasions has that Christmas morning low been over the 40-degree mark. So what are we expecting for this Christmas? Overall, even though we do have a wintry chill arriving for the weekend, we are expecting warmer than normal conditions to roll in by Christmas Eve and into Christmas Day. What does that mean for you? Well, any snowfall that is on the ground preceding Christmas and those days before is likely to be melting away as we head towards the Christmas holiday, with temperatures that are expected to climb up into the 40s by Christmas Day. And you can stay tuned to WTOL 11 for those white Christmas chances, which have continued to trend down. But if you do love that Christmas snow, maybe take advantage of it this weekend if you have any early holiday gatherings. So what can you expect as we head towards the remainder of the winter season? Overall, we are expecting the impact of La Nina conditions across the Great Lakes region. Typically, that does mean wetter than normal weather conditions across the Midwest and the Great Lakes. However, that doesn't necessarily equate to a lot of snowfall, typically just seeing a lot of precipitation. La Nina is typically associated with mild conditions in the southeast, dry in the southwest, and also a rainy weather pattern that occurs in the Pacific Northwest. That cooler air remains in the upper Midwest, typically not always diving down into the Great Lakes. But there is a lot of up and down and volatility with any weather pattern, and whether it's La Nina or El Nino, that's not necessarily going to write off our winter or guarantee a big snowfall. And climate change is also playing a role. It's something that doesn't necessarily cause the winter weather that occurs year to year, but it plays a role and it is correlated with the winter weather that we feel. Looking back at data since 1970, so over half a century of data on over 200 American cities, almost every single one of them, 98% of those 200 plus cities, have experienced winter warming. That's not surprising, and you may have noticed those changes just within your lifetime as well. Winter is the most quickly warming season for the vast majority of cities as well. In other words, you may expect climate change to play more of a role in summer, but winter is counterintuitively the biggest impact season across the board. In fact, about 3 in 4 cities, winter is the most rapidly warming season of the 4. So how else is climate change impacting wintry weather? In general, seeing freezing temperatures is becoming less common across the country. And on average, most cities are seeing 13 per year number of fewer freezing days. That's playing a significant role in the growing season and really kind of extending fall and extending spring and constricting or shrinking the winter season. Also, the coldest winter night is getting warmer. If you look at the coldest night recorded during the entire calendar year, it is on average 7 degrees warmer than it was with the past data. That has grown considerably warmer, and keep in mind that's just the average of those 200 to 250 cities that have been analyzed over the last half century. Now, the greatest warming has interestingly occurred fairly close to home here. Winter warming has exceeded 10 degrees in 21% of those weather stations that were observed. In other words, that is the highest magnitude of warming that was reported during the winter time, and the biggest warming trend has actually occurred fairly close to home across the Ohio River Valley. And that's a little bit south of Toledo and southeast Michigan, but areas kind of right along that West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio tri-state. That is where winter warming has been the most rapid, and they have seen the most extreme changes as a result of climate change. So even though we don't expect a white Christmas this year, what can you anticipate as we head towards the final days of the calendar year? It's going to be a big warm up. By New Year's Day, temperature is going to be in the upper 40s to even the low 50s, and it's likely that this trend continues into the start of January. If you're not already subscribed, WTOL.com/email, that is the place to get the latest climate data straight to your inbox. We'll see you next week.